I think what was fueling my anxiety and depression was the fact that I truly wasn't doing anything with my life. I wasn't going anywhere. I wanted to do so many things. I would, sit in my room and I would fantasize about all of these experiences that I wanted to have and all of the things that I wanted to do. But that was it. I didn't do any of them. I didn't even make the first step to do any of them. And so that was giving me anxiety. That was making me depressed. The fact that I was the only person standing in my way. I lost my mom when I was 17 years old to cancer, and it's weird because it's been 7 years, and this year is the only year that I was sort of open to the possibility of speaking to a medium to connect with her. I have a really good friend who had a really amazing experience with him. She labeled it as life-changing, and everything she was saying resonated with me, and I was like, oh my god, I need to speak to this man. He asked me why I decided to come see him, and he's like, would you like me to make some observations? And right off the bat, he looked at a specific feature on my face, and he spoke about an aspect of my personality that was right on point. It was spot on. That first initial phone conversation, it's as if he spoke my entire life out loud, and I didn't have to say anything. Because initially we didn't start off the session as a mediumistic reading. It was well into the session, and we hadn't even mentioned that I hadn't even mentioned that my mom had passed, and I sort of had made peace already at that point. I was like, okay, well, this session, if it didn't happen, it didn't happen, and then it happened. Throughout the conversation towards the end, I mentioned that my mother had passed, and right away he was like, you want to connect with her? Are you ready? And I was like, yeah, like I'm ready. I'm of course I'm ready. And so we did, and she came through in the most specific way possible. She spoke about things that right off the bat, the first thing he said, I was already in tears because it was so specific to what her situation was before she passed. And I knew it was her. I knew she was there. When she came through, he says that the way he knows it's her is if she mentions 5 things that only I can identify. And he did. That's how it started. Everything he said, almost everything initially that he said, I was nodding my head, and that resonated with me. And although it wasn't a conversation back and forth with her and I didn't ask questions, she validated that she's here, and she's just not here in the physical sense, but she sees everything and she's followed everything. She commented on very current things in my life, in my family's life, and I could go to therapy for years and not have the kind of peace that I felt after that first initial experience. Well, for even therapy, it took me a really long time to be okay with going to therapy too. But actually, the first year that I started going to therapy was the beginning of this year. And I was just explaining my life and what had happened in my life and the things that I had experienced, but that was kind of it. I just felt like I was, I had a good amount of sessions with my therapist, and I didn't feel like I was making any progress. And when it came to my anxiety, when it came to my depression, I just felt like I just kept repeating myself. I just kept talking about my experiences, but I wasn't getting anywhere. I was still suffering with my anxiety every single day. I still had a lot of question and anger surrounding my mother's death, and I didn't feel like I was getting anywhere. And so before I even knew about Vlad, I made the decision to stop going to therapy because it just wasn't working for me. I wasn't really familiar with another version of myself that didn't include depression, because I'd be okay for a while, but I'd always fall back into depression. So I didn't deal with it when I was depressed or when I was feeling super low, I slept a lot. I didn't do anything. I didn't go anywhere. I didn't see anybody. I just slept. And along the way, I picked up some substances that I became addicted to, and I thought that they were helping me get through whatever it is that I was going through. And then within this last year, my anxiety was terrible. I wouldn't want to go to sleep at night because I knew that in the morning I'd wake up with anxiety, and I'd wake up with my heart pounding. I'd wake up with just this sensation that would start in the center of my chest and would just like flow throughout my entire body. I couldn't start the day without taking in the substances that I was addicted to. I couldn't do anything. I knew I really wanted to speak to my mom, but I also knew I needed to get my life in order because I wasn't living my life. I was stagnant for so many years. I wasn't doing anything for myself. I couldn't even plan ahead because as I was planning, I was thinking of the million things that would go wrong, surely would go wrong, that would stop me from doing what I wanted to do. I feel like I'm more capable now, and he's really helped me see that I'm not bad. I wasn't bad, you know. I just didn't have the proper tools to navigate my life, navigate my brain. You know, I feel more in tune with who I am as a person and what I'm capable of doing and achieving, and that, you know, I am strong. I am able to make a plan and go for it and not consume myself with worry about all the things that are gonna go wrong and all the ways that I'm gonna fail. And I understand now that I'm not a victim to my reality. I co-create my reality, and I choose my outcome. He says the power of deliberate intent is if you intend for it to go this way and you feel that accordingly, and you make the steps that you need to make, it'll happen for you. And if you feel the bad, if you feel the what ifs, that can happen too, because you're fueling it. You're putting energy into it, as opposed to putting energy into it happening the way you want it to happen. That's what I think it means to be fully realized. What he does really well is the tools he provides you are meant to sustain you. He's not interested in being the one that sustains you. He's interested in providing you with the tools to sustain you. So you depend on those tools. You don't depend on him, you know. And those tools are yoga and meditation and kickboxing and moving my body, and it's what's worked for me. But I'd say, you know, if you're stuck in the mundane, everyday routine with not knowing where your life is going, not knowing how to navigate through all these emotions you have on a daily basis, you know, possible anxieties you might have, if you've experienced any of those things and you want to improve those aspects of your life, and speak to him, you know, speak to Vlad, because I can without a doubt, you know, it's a very cliche term to say it's life-changing. I've completely stopped both marijuana and nicotine while being, you know, at the retreat, and while being provided with these tools to help navigate my anxiety, which yoga does provide for me. But because, you know, there was a point in my life where I had to start the day with these substances. I couldn't get out of bed without them. And I'm at that point where I don't feel that way anymore. I don't feel like I have to be a victim to these substances. I don't feel like I need them to start my day. I just don't have the same attachment to them anymore, and that's really huge for me, because I really didn't think I'd get to this place so soon. I think I'm happier than I've been in a really, really long time. I'm excited for myself. I'm excited for my future. I'm excited to make more plans. I'm excited to learn I am happy, you know, and I always hesitate to say I'm happy, but I'm really happy that I've made the plan. You know, I've made a plan, and I've fueled my plan, and you know, I'm gonna have the experience of coming out here and, you know, living on my own and creating a life for myself that I just never thought was possible.